Well, shall we get to it?
Yep. We better sort out all this food. Combine it. Pack it. Rack it and stack it.
Ooh, I forgot the most important part. No, the beer.
The beer?
That's cool. Rain's coming in from every angle. All right, what do you want to do first?
Let's start from like mornings and work through chronologically.
Okay.
Start from the timing. So breakfasts first.
Breakfast? Okay.
Okay. Now the question is, should Drink is Pink go with hot chocolate for breakfast?
I would say so, because we take out the Drink is Pink when we have every meal, right?
So hot chocolate and the Drink is Pink?
Yeah.
I think so.
I would say so.
Okay.
All right, so that's supper then.
God, one just in the fringes, but give it a shot.
Yeah, it might not work, but at least they're together. All right, so we got 50 strips of bacon. So that, well, I tried to seal them.
It's like you've included more air than as if you hadn't sealed. You've sealed the air in.
Yeah, but it's good wholesome air.
You've made little balloon packs to ensure the air gets impregnated in the organic food.
Perhaps.
Do you want me to try and blow this up too? A little extra air.
3.
You sure this is full?
I don't know.
I have a full one for sure. We'll compare. This is the technical way to check. This is, okay, they're full, they're both full, okay. Have we actually ever used the hand gel?
What is the hand gel for?
Your feet?
Okay.
This is the newer sort of normal flare, not the bear flare that has a big ball of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's your same old, but it's more waterproof.
Oh, okay.
And it's the same old thing as this comes off for your...
And that's your...
That's your igniter.
Sparker.
And then this is nice and tight, but that comes off. And when this is off,
then you spark it and away you go, eh?
So this may be more durable than the old-fashioned one.
Okay.
But it's still just a normal burn time like the old one. So
yeah.
If you want to bring your old one, fine, or you can use this one.
Okay. Where did you get that from?
Just Canadian Tire.
Oh.
Yeah. I think in the marine section.
Oh. It's handheld too.
So it can also be paddle held.
True.
Check out cbcbooks.ca. We always like to hear from you. Our email is, they say that the rules are not fair, especially for the little guy. And as Deborah Goebel reports, they warn the black market will still have the upper hand. We now have a deadline.
Once you leave the Agawam campground, it's exactly west, about exactly 14.5 kilometers, and the road isn't marked, but it goes in about 2 kilometers to our parking spot, and we're going to leave the Yukon there and take the Flex up to the other entry point.
And there's the sign with the smallest decimal point ever made. It is 1.9 kilometers.
So, we're going to go in and have a great time.
Yeah. 80 million tickets.
Okay, we're just at the parking spot up from Agawa, 2 kilometers in. We're going to leave the Yukon here, take the Flex up, about 36 kilometers. That's it.
And that's the portage over there, right?
That's where we're going to be coming out.
Ooh, that's a lot of water. All right, well, we have the tickets ready.
We're not sure which one to use, so we're just going to throw them all up there.
Action, Jim.
Here we are at Gamitagama. Paddle the crystal clear waters of Gamitagama Lake. Explore the sheltered bays. 2 kilometers. Parked in a nice flat spot. Good footing. Just about to go in to our put in. Very sunny. That's a good thing. So we just got in the 300-meter portage to Gamitagama. Beautiful sunny day still. I think the clouds are going to clear up. It was uphill all the way, unlike the last trip we took, which was downhill all the way. There's another portage that used to go in behind us, but it used to go past a mine shaft. And the mine shaft we saw a couple of years ago, quite deep, dangerous, so I bet they changed that portage from past the mine shaft and they put in this new one a bunch of years ago. Otherwise, I think this may be the first time that Scott's been in a canoe this year.
Yes.
So good luck, Scott.
Oh, thank you. So, Jim, where did we go yesterday?
Well, we came up from Agawa. We drove down this kilometer or so road and parked at a nice parking spot there. Put in around 11 o'clock and canoed east down Gamitagama. It was beautiful, sunny day. Down through some narrows, and portage finding here, it actually wasn't at the top of the dotted red line. It was deep down in the corner of this lake. And then it was a nice portage, no problems, into a smaller sort of swampy lake where there were a couple of 2x6 boardwalks to launch into. We did not take the portage on the east side of the lake. We continued all the way down, and just about here there's a new beaver dam where the portage wasn't clear. So Scott walked around a little bit and found that we could walk down the creek side here on some rocks, cross over, and then we met a larger beaver dam that had been wrecked, and I do remember that from last year.
Is this your big beaver dam?
I think so. It's not here now.
No.
It used to be. I got it. When this beaver dam was here, the water was this high.
Oh, and that's how we got over.
Where we actually put back in here and came in the opposite direction when the water was fuller. We continued on the portage and ended in a swampy type area, but there was just enough room to get the canoe zigzagging through the swamp. We never did in 2016 or this year have to use this portage on the east side, but we noticed halfway down the swamp there was a sign right in the middle of the swamp that had a portage sign.
Hey, Jim, I found a marker over here.
I'm not sure what that meant or where the portage was.
Winter portage.
Anyway, we finally got through the swampy area and into a nice windy lake. We were getting a little bit hungry by then. It was around 1:30 or 2 o'clock, so we had a nice floating lunch through here, drifting around a little bit, and then straight south to the lower south east corner. There's a great portage put in there, and that's where we started our next leg. So after getting to the beginning of the portage here, the portage sign was on the ground, so we replaced it. And this was at 800 towards the east meter portage. It was quite a bit steady, quite high, and then quite a bit down. So it took about 20 minutes each leg on the 3 usual legs. We scooted across this little lake, and behind a very small island here, there was another portage, which was about 200 meters. And that came down into a nice little bit of a rocky put in here. Had to be careful with pointy rocks. Scooted across that lake. And then this one in here that says 70, it was actually navigable pretty much up a small channel about 100 meters long, but we had to unload the canoe to pull it over sort of a rock face. There is a campsite slightly south of this by about 10 meters, but it looked a little closed in and buggy, maybe just an emergency site that if you couldn't get in from Gami to Old Woman, you could crash there. Continued east across this next portage is about 100 meters, and again down a little tiny inlet was the beginning of the big portage, the 800 meter, the famous one that's quite drops about 100 meters over here.
Steep there, right?
Yeah, in about a 200 meter stretch. So this again is very slow up, but very wonderful. Lots of open areas, trees. This time of year, no one's really been this way, so it's sometimes hard to even see the trail, because the shrubbery around the outside of the trail hasn't grown up enough to define the trail. Scott carried the canoe down here, which was great, so I didn't have to. And then when we got to the bottom of here, Scott thought he smelled a little bit of smoke, and sure enough, right across towards that old cabin, there were a couple of American guys, Chris and Ryan, who were just finished catching some fish.
Fancy outhouse. Check to see if anyone's home. Very stylish.
Went up, had a look at the cabin, looked at the old note in the logbook that I'd written in 2016 in August. They invited us for dinner again. They had the whole cabin with all their stuff in it and everything. It looked great, and their tent was inside the cabin. But we declined because we had our own little routine, and it was getting close to 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll use a fireplace. That's what it's going to cool off. There's quite a few bugs out right now.
Yeah.
We're going to do the same thing you guys are going to do. We're just taking our time.
My dad used to come here back in the late 50s. Like the Algoma Rill, and then get in there and then come down that. Where's that old book that you used to That one's
Our first drink today is we got a little bit of Hayden Basil. It's about it's a liter, but I mean obviously you don't drink that much. But really smooth Kentucky bourbon, really smooth. Throughout the trip we'll stay with some regular vodka, and then we have a little bit of mixer whiskey, which would be just like an Evan Williams, smoother cut.
So you're well stocked then.
Oh my God, we're well stocked. We've probably got 6 liters between the both of us.
So we popped up this way, followed the island, went through a little inlet here, and we spent the night at the campsite we're sitting at right now. I don't know if we call it anything, but it was beautiful. It's been sunny this morning, and we've just packed up over the last hour or so, and we're ready to go and head down towards this direction here on our way to the Sand River.
And everything's dry now too, which is nice.
Yeah, drier and lighter, so we don't have to carry 5 pounds of water on our wet gear. So we like to boil that for a minute. That takes care of everything.
All right, so yesterday, Jim, we had another nice day. So where did we wind up going?
Well, we started from our site on Old Woman, and then we scooted down, checked out the sites where the hashtags are. This one's pretty good. It's about an A. It's a bit closed in with cedars. This one's more of a novice site, maybe an ER site. Then we short little portage to the left of a very old, about 7 to 9 foot high beaver dam, which is really nice because it's totally solid because all sorts of plants and trees have grown into it. Down a little pathway here across a lake to begin a 900 meter portage, which we were a little worried about because it was long, but it was actually like a highway. It was pretty much perfectly flat all the way across. About a third of the way into it, it shows on this map only going towards the southwest, but also coming from the northeast. There's a beautiful old road, looks like nice gravel, grown over maybe about 5 or 10 years of trees, but quite a substantial road. We think it probably was a logging road.
Is that a campfire? A very old campfire if it was.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these are like 14.
14 years old?
Yeah. We finished up that portage and went in to have a little bit of lunch floating away from the bugs in the middle of Black Lake. This hashtag campsite didn't exist. This one after lunch was a bit closed in, but not bad, but nowhere near where we were going to stay. This 500 meter one was interesting in that it went fairly much up at the beginning, and then almost halfway down it we found another really old road. Had a culvert and totally filled in valley, and again it looked on another map, the MOT map, like it would have been a logging road for sure. So the surprise at the end of the 500 meter portage is that it wasn't the end of the 500 meter portage. There was a sign, but this extra 100 or 200 meters was totally swamped, so we walked across the edge of it. It was pretty warm there, and then also tagged on this 100 meter, so probably was about 800 meters. There was, however, some water here, which was nice, so we scooted across there. Found the portage at the south end. Now this one, this one actually goes almost all downwards towards this black Mandy Lake. It has a beautiful white pine up in the hill here. Looks like about 300 years old and about 200 feet tall. It was a nice portage as well, but very much down all the way here. No issues there otherwise. So we scooted down this lake between that island and the peninsula, and this was the one that Brian and Chris were talking the other day everything's pretty good except for the up and down, and now we realize which portage was the up and down. It was about 100 meters up and 100 meters down over 300 meters, and I think we both had to stop periodically going on the up part when we were carrying our bags. Scott had a little bit of an interesting incident here where he decided to slide down the hill for a little ways with the canoe on his head.
It was like going on Canada's Wonderland.
Down a water slide. Finally made it back and forth. It was a little bit of sweating going on that one. So we were both tired after this and decided that around 4 or so we were going to stop for the night. So we had a look at this campsite here that we're actually on now and did end up eventually staying on. But thought, well, maybe we can do better. So we looked down here and it was a little bit old and skunky and closed in.
A beaver dam was right by it too. So it was kind of beaver dam-ishy.
So then we scooted all the way up here thinking, well, why don't we just camp here and start our portage tomorrow morning from the site. However, I scouted it and it looked like a very small area with a big tree fallen over, and the only trail on it was heading towards the Thunderbox. So all the way back down here into the wind, and we ended up staying at this one we're at here, which is pretty nice. And it would have been a B+, except we're going to call it an A because this little tiny dot here is a small rock island, probably about 20 by 20 meters that we went for a great swim.
There it is.
There it is there. And we canoed fairly quickly into the wind for a bit, so we didn't catch any flies when we got out there. And we spent about an hour there just swimming and drying clothes. It was shady in here, but out here was perfectly sunny as the sun was setting in the west. Came back, had a great night, terraformed this site into a nice little comfy area. And yeah, and the weather's been great, and today's incredibly sunny. And looks like it's going to be a scorcher. Alright, so on our third day, we woke up at the beautiful campsite that we had the swim at the day before, and canoed northeast, and we knew the route because we had checked this query campsite out the day before. So we scooted up there, and yes, the campsite was still not there.
So at least a tent pad over there?
This portage was fairly regular. It was about a 7 out of 10 in toughness. Up, 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 and down, down, down. There also was absolutely no campsite at the other side either. And we went south on Wildcat to the bottom, easy route finding. And this portage was up quite a bit at the beginning, but down tons all the way the rest of the portage. Otherwise it was nil of note, just beautiful. We got into here around 12 or noonish, 12:30, and there's a nice island campsite here that we had lunch at. It wouldn't have been too good for camping because the tent pads were very sloped, and maybe just 1 to 1.5 tents would fit on there. So continued on to the east, down the skinny part of the east leg of Wildcat Lake, and an obvious portage takeout as well. And a 660 that's fairly flat. Halfway
It was
there,
nice, wasn't it?
It was very relaxing compared to the up and downs we've been doing, that's for sure. This little part of the river is a little bit of a water area, but yeah, we'd make sure you don't put back in there. But it's fairly obvious. And we just step over a small stream. That was a good portage. And I think we were a little bit anxious to finally see the water level in the Sand River because it's a little bit later in the middle of June, and we didn't want to be taking the next 20 or 30 kilometers down sand, gravel bars and boulders.
What did you think of that one?
Good. There seems to be some water in the river.
Always a bonus, eh?
Always a bonus.
But when we got there, the river was way bigger than we thought it would be. Lots of flow. very relaxing. So very happy about that. Easy grass put in. Now I have to say,
It's a fairly big river, actually, eh?
here to camera get well what we just did.
Would be a very big hike.
It was a hike. So the first rapids we came to, we scouted them briefly and it looked like a bit of a boulder field, but the water level was nicely high enough. We just picked our way down it, got to a very small little reservoir. The next 170 meter rapids was again fairly easy, a class 2, pretty much straight down the middle following the flow. And then we got to what I called the little peanut lake, which was easy to go down. We scouted those rapids and realized that probably a little bit too much chance of getting hung up on boulders. So we lined it down the right-hand side up to our waists and took about 10 or 20 minutes, quite refreshing in the heat.
Well, it was a nice cooling down.
And we were really glad that we didn't take the portage because it was a lot easier than unloading and loading up again. The next rapids, we probably didn't scout as much as we should, and we had 3 boulders to contend with at the end, and we aimed for between 2 of them and ended up going between the other 2. But the canoe just barely fit, so that was great. The river heads east then and goes around a nice island, which is again obvious. We took the north leg, and the portage is definitely not right after the river reconvenes, but it's quite close to the next set of rapids, which I think were not safe, and Scott didn't think they were safe to run at all. It was pretty class 2.5, 3, maybe even 4 with boulders all over the place. So the portage starts just 10 or 30 meters before the rapids, and again it's easy to see, but it definitely doesn't start there. That portage was indeed those 75 meters onto a nice sand beach. We put back in the water for a couple hundred meters, and then again an obvious takeout, and no problems there, and out at the top of the falls, and then we walked down or portaged down to the campsite, which is at the bottom of the falls, and was quite a beautiful campsite.
It was nice.
Good swimming, good little sand beach, 2 by 2 feet, set up usually as we usually do, and then went for a swim. The water was quite cold. I guess maybe the river water is different than lake water temperature this time of year, and it was perfect. So that's where we spent the 3rd night.
Thanks, Jim.
So the beginning of day 4, of course, starts at the campsite that we ended at last night. It was a bit rainy in the morning, so we got on our rain gear, but it cleared up fairly nicely. It was a very beautiful put-in. Floated down the Sand River, paddled, but we managed to do the rapids here without too much trouble.
It was kind of a gravel bed or something, wasn't it?
I think there was. Avoided that portage. This one also was fairly easy. We just went scooting down that. And the river flow was fairly good. The more it twists and turns, the more it slows down, so there was a bit of paddling around what I call the bluff here. Cruising past the swamp, another landmark, then heading back to the west. we were keeping our eye open for these two sites that were apparently at a logging road that used to cross over here in this direction. However, when we got there, we saw two little bulges from each side and some rocks on either side, but no hint of a campsite whatsoever. They were kind of washed out behind the blobs of rocks. Continued taking the corner to the south or left and came to a portage that looked like it might at first be runnable, but it was a ledge about 4 or 5 feet tall, very smooth over the top. However, there was a long hole across the whole thing, and I think the canoe would have just put the nose in and maybe gone underwater, so we decided just to pop our bags out and do that. Quick portage. Continued on down between two beautiful tall mountains, and this portage 21 is unrunnable. Some beautiful falls. Grassy field, back in, down a small lake, and 100-meter portage on the right, which was an easy portage, quite horizontal, ending in a very sandy beach, slightly closed-in campsite. And those falls were quite a bit longer, like about 5 or 10 different ledges of about 4 or 5 feet each.
Would have been good swimming though.
It would have been a great swimming. I think we were a little worried about the sand flies and that kind of thing there. This has its own nice look to it though.
It does.
A tier up there for a tent. Might be a little hard to get your tent pegs in, but it has the best breeze.
It's fairly sheltered too. You can get a lot of people in this area though.
So we continued on down, anticipating a nice campsite at the top of the falls, and pulled off to a portage left on the east side, and within 20 or 30 meters, the first site is the site we actually stayed at, and it was a great site. Good swimming if you watched that you didn't go down the falls, but to be sure there wasn't a better site at the bottom of the falls, we did do a recon down here for about a 5-minute walk, and this was a really old sandy site that looked like it hadn't been used in 20 or 30 years. So we thought, well, maybe there's even a better site down here. So we walked all the way about another 700 or 800 meters without our bags to check out this site. This site was sandy, but it looked like it had been built on an old beaver dam with lots of sticks and twigs where you might go swimming. So that wasn't really ideal for swimming. So we walked all the way back and did stay at the first campsite just 50 meters in from the portage, and that was a good site.
So Jim, we're on to day 6 then, are we?
Yeah, but on day 5, which was yesterday, we got up at the falls, Lady Evelyn Falls, did the portage trail we did a few times yesterday looking for campsites, as mentioned, and put in at the end of the kilometer and a bit put in, where there was a nice little recess in the river and a nice little falls. Canoed down. This little island loop came sooner than we thought, than it was on the map, but the rapids were runnable on the right hand side, which was the obvious side, for about 100 meters. No problems there. Continued down the river, and also were able to run these rapids as well, which were technically fine to run. Continued down here, and there was a little bit of a change in the real world, in that right above the stick here, there was actually another portage that is not marked here, and it was not runnable, some boulders, and a little too deep to line, so it was only about 50 or 100 meters long, so we took that one. At first we thought that was the one that was High Falls Rapids, because it was the next one marked on the map, but at the end of it, or High Cliff Rapids, but at the end of it there was no high cliff. Once we got down to here and saw another set of rapids, we realized this wasn't marked on the map. We did this one, and sure enough, we did run it, and at the end,
There's a high cliff.
there's a very high cliff. It was beautiful. There's lots of good pictures of that. Continue down the Sand River. The next portage was, we didn't have to take it, because we ran for a half a kilometer of various rapids all the way down here. No problems.
But we didn't see that campsite though, did we?
No, I think we were going fairly quickly down the rapids to even glance to the left to take a
Yeah.
look at that campsite. Continue on, no issues here, just a nice river, lots of gravel bars, and having to dodge some boulders here and there. River splits on either side of some nice big sandbar islands. These rapids here, you had to portage. They were like about a class 3, and with some tiers all the way down. Tiers in the rocks, that is. Easy portage, about 250 meters. Scooted down here, and the last portage we took at the end of the day was about 300 meters, and it needed to be done as well because there were quite a few boulder fields and small waterfalls down here. This site, luckily, is a site that it's the end of a trail that comes up from the highway, a walking trail. So we were hoping that campsite would be nice because it was busy. Hopefully it would be busy, and indeed it was a beautiful site. You know, have some pictures of that.
It
of
is,
course.
isn't it? I guess we're at the end of the trail, Jim.
We gotta go back.
We gotta go back
Okay,
to the parking lot.
5 more days.
I brought enough booze.
Not gonna argue with it. Went for a great swim at the end of the rapids. Scott went into the middle of the boulders in the middle of the rapids for his swim. Okay. Woke up this morning, day 6. Had a very leisurely breakfast this morning, just chatting for a while. Sun came up in the east as usual. And water, please.
There.
There's her. we'll be putting in here, and we only have to go about half a kilometer to just above a waterfall, so it should be a pretty tough day. And then up just over 100-meter portage back to the Yukon, and then we'll have to retool there, drive back out this tiny road, up 17, 36 kilometers to the Gamitagama Lake, where the flex is left, and that's where we'll redistribute some stuff there. And that will be the end of our trip, and we'll part ways, and Scott will go south and I'll go north. And there you have it. All done.
Yeah, until August, and then we start it all over again.
Yeah, about 7.5 weeks from now, and I can't believe that every single trip I have is a better trip than the one before.
That's a good way of having it.
So we're just finishing up the Sand River. Great 5 days. Weather was perfect. Maybe 20 minutes of rain the whole time. First couple of days we came in through Old Woman Lake. It was a lot of up and down hills for a while. A little bit sweaty, some hard work. The last couple of days we're coming down the river. We probably did 10 or 15 sets of rapids, but had to portage a few.
It was fun though.
It was great. Water levels were good. Wouldn't like it to get too much lower than it is now. Beautiful scenery, and we're on our way out this morning, back to the car. Haven't seen anybody for the past 5 days, just those first two guys, Chris and Ryan. Other than that, it's been totally desolate and fantastic. Have a great time. Come and enjoy the Sand River.